What if the very phrase meant to inspire you, "God helps those who help themselves," is actually the most devastating spiritual lie you've ever believed? The one that keeps you silently drowning, convinced your struggles are just proof you haven't tried hard enough, haven't been good enough. For centuries, this insidious idea has subtly twisted our understanding of divine love, making true grace seem conditional, earned, and utterly out of reach for the broken. But one man, the brilliant G.K. Chesterton, saw through its deceptive comfort and exposed its cruel heart. He didn't just argue against it, he unveiled a truth so radically different, so gloriously liberating, it will shatter every false belief about where divine help truly lies. Get ready to understand grace like never before, because Chesterton knew the scandalous truth was far more hopeful and infinitely more divine.
G.K. Chesterton understood that the phrase, "God helps those who help themselves," sounds reasonable on the surface. It appeals to our sense of independence, our admirable drive for self-improvement. But for Chesterton, this adage, often misattributed and frequently quoted as biblical wisdom, is actually rooted in Stoicism, in a pagan idea of self-reliance, rather than the core tenets of Christianity. For him, the very essence of God's love isn't about assisting the already capable. It's about rescuing the utterly helpless, embracing the broken, and lifting up the fallen. The very heart of Chesterton's profound insight lay in the upside-down kingdom of Christ. While the world values strength, independence, and achievement, the divine often glorifies humility, dependence, and surrender. If God only helps those who help themselves, what then of the sick, the utterly defeated, the prodigal lost in the far country, the desperate widow, the criminal nailed to a cross? Does God abandon them in their absolute inability to help themselves? Chesterton would shout, no. He'd point to the most iconic stories of faith. Consider the parable of the prodigal son. The son reaches his absolute lowest point, feeding pigs, longing for husks, utterly destitute and without dignity. He has nothing left. He cannot help himself out of that mire. Yet the father doesn't wait for him to clean up, to earn some money, to make himself presentable. No, the father, seeing him a long way off, runs towards his filthy, broken child, embracing him, showering him with unconditional love, restoring his honor before the son can even finish his rehearsed apology. That son was at his absolute weakest, most helpless point, and that's precisely when the father's unconditional, scandalous love overwhelmed him. It's a love that doesn't demand worthiness, but extends grace to the utterly unworthy.
Or consider Peter walking on water. It wasn't Peter's inherent ability that kept him afloat. It was his faith in Jesus. The moment Peter doubted, the moment he tried to help himself by looking at the waves rather than the master, he began to sink. And what did Jesus do? He didn't say, "Help yourself, Peter." He immediately reached out his hand and caught him. It's not about being strong enough to impress God. It's about being weak enough to need him and courageous enough to cry out. For Chesterton, Christianity wasn't a self-improvement program for the strong. It was a hospital for the sick, a refuge for the desperate, a hand extended to those drowning. It's in our acknowledgement of our deepest need, our radical dependence, that we truly open ourselves to the divine. God doesn't wait for us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. He reaches down into the pit we've fallen into, not because we deserve it, but because He is love. He blesses the poor in spirit, the meek, those who mourn, not the self-sufficient.
Take a moment and reflect on your own journey. Perhaps you've been carrying a silent burden, a persistent addiction you can't conquer alone, a crushing financial crisis that feels insurmountable, a broken heart that refuses to mend, a suffocating sense of anxiety or inadequacy. And all the while, that insidious little phrase, "God helps those who help themselves," has echoed in your mind, making you feel like your ongoing struggles are simply proof that you haven't tried hard enough, haven't been strong enough, haven't helped yourself sufficiently. This lie keeps us in isolation, ashamed of our vulnerabilities, silently battling giants we were never meant to face alone. It tells us we must perform, achieve, and perfect ourselves before we can truly be worthy of grace or assistance. But Chesterton offers a profound liberation from this exhausting, often crushing illusion of self-sufficiency. What if your very helplessness is not a barrier, but an invitation? An invitation for a love that doesn't demand you be perfect or whole or fixed before it embraces you, but rushes towards you precisely in your brokenness. It's about letting go of the desperate need to present a flawless facade to God, to the world, and even to yourself. It's daring to be utterly vulnerable, to truly surrender that burden, that struggle, that weakness, and to cry out from the depths of your need. This isn't an excuse for passivity, for doing nothing. It's an active, courageous choice to acknowledge your limits, to stop fighting a battle you were never equipped to win alone, and to open your hands in true, heartfelt supplication. It's the radical humility that says, I cannot. I am at the end of my rope. I need you. And it is in that raw, honest surrender, not in your Herculean efforts to help yourself, that God's grace often pours in, not because you earned it, but precisely because you couldn't. Imagine the relief, the profound peace of truly letting go and allowing the divine to meet you in your unvarnished weakness. God doesn't help those who help themselves. God helps those who can't help themselves, those who admit they can't, and those who cry out for Him.
This truth, that God helps the helpless, is deeply countercultural. It challenges everything our society tells us about strength, achievement, and self-reliance. What does this radical Chestertonian truth mean for you today? What part of your life, what struggle, what burden are you still trying to help yourself with, feeling the immense weight of that false promise? Or conversely, when have you experienced the profound liberation and unexpected grace that came only when you finally surrendered, recognizing your utter dependence? Share your thoughts, your struggles, and your moments of grace in the comments below. Let's build a community that shatters the myth of self-sufficiency and embraces the scandalous, transformative power of leaning into divine grace, not just our own limited strength. If this message resonated deeply with your spirit, please like this video, subscribe for more transformative insights that challenge conventional wisdom, and share it with someone who desperately needs to hear this liberating truth. Remember, it is in our weakness that His strength is made perfect.